This is TechCrunch.
An internal research study at Meta dubbed Project MIST, created in partnership with the University of Chicago, found that parental supervision and controls, such as time limits and restricted access, had little impact on kids' compulsive use of social media. The study also found that kids who experienced stressful life events were more likely to lack the ability to moderate their social media use appropriately. This was one of the notable claims revealed during testimony at the social media addiction trial that began last week in Los Angeles County Superior Court. The plaintiff in the lawsuit is identified by her initials KGM, or her first name Kaylee. She, along with her mother and others joining the case, is accusing social media companies of creating addictive and dangerous products that led the young users to suffer anxiety, depression, body dysmorphia, eating disorders, self-harm, suicidal ideation, and more. The case is now one of several landmark trials that will take place this year, which accuse social media companies of harming children. The results of these lawsuits will impact these companies' approach to their younger users and could prompt regulators to take further action. In this case, the plaintiff sued Meta, YouTube, ByteDance, and Snap, but the latter two companies had settled their claims before the trial's start. In the jury trial now underway in LA, Kaylee's lawyer, Mark Lanier, brought up an internal study at Meta, which he said found evidence that Meta knew of yet didn't publicize these specific harms. In Project MISTY, which stands for the Meta and Youth Social Emotional Trends Survey, Meta's research concluded that parental and household factors have little association with teens' reported levels of attentiveness to their social media use. Or, in other words, even when parents try to control their children's social media use, either by using parental controls or even just household rules and supervision, it doesn't impact whether or not the child will overuse social media or use it compulsively. The study was based on a survey of 1,000 teens and their parents about their social media use. The study also noted that both parents and teens agreed on this front, saying there is no association between either parental reports or teen reports of parental supervision and teen survey measures of attentiveness or capability. If the study's findings are accurate, that would mean that the use of things like the built-in parental controls in the Instagram app or the time limits on smartphones wouldn't necessarily help teens become less inclined to overuse social media, the plaintiff's lawyer argued. As the original complaint alleges, teens are being exploited by social media products, whose defects include algorithmic feeds designed to keep users scrolling, intermittent variable rewards that manipulate dopamine delivery, incessant notifications, deficient tools for parental controls, and more. During his testimony, Instagram head Adam Mosseri claimed not to be familiar with Meta's Project Mice, even though a document seemed to indicate he had given his approval to move forward with the study. However, the plaintiff's lawyer pointed to this study as an example of why social media companies should be held accountable for their alleged harms, not the parents. He noted that Kaylee's mother, for example, had tried to stop her daughter's social media addiction and use, even taking her phone away at times. What's more, the study found that teens who had a greater number of adverse life experiences, like those dealing with alcoholic parents, harassment at school, or other issues, reported less attentiveness over their social media use. That means that kids facing trauma in their real lives were more at risk of addiction, the lawyer argued. On the stand, Mosseri seemed to partially agree with this finding, saying, "There's a variety of reasons this can be the case. One I've heard often is that people use Instagram as a way to escape from a more difficult reality." Meta is careful not to label any sort of overuse as addiction. Instead, Mosseri stated that the company uses the term problematic use to refer to someone spending more time on Instagram than they feel good about. Lawyers for Meta, meanwhile, pushed the idea that the study was more narrowly focused on understanding if teens felt they were using social media too much, not whether or not they were actually addicted. They also generally aimed to put more of the responsibility on parents and the realities of life as the catalyst for kids like Kaylee's negative emotional states, not companies' social media products. For instance, Meta's lawyers pointed to Kaylee being a child of divorced parents, with an abusive father, and facing bullying at school. How the jury will interpret the findings of studies like Project Mist and others, along with the testimonies from both sides, remains to be seen. Mosseri did note, however, that Mist's findings had not been published publicly, and no warnings were ever issued to teens or parents as a result of the research. Late last month, The Information reported that Apple was developing an AI wearable, an AirTag-sized pendant with cameras that could be pinned to a user's shirt. Now, Bloomberg writes that the development of such a device, along with two other AI-powered items, is accelerating as Apple looks to stay competitive with other tech giants that are racing to release similar products. In addition to the AI pin, Apple is also speeding up the development of its upcoming AI-powered smart glasses, which have been codenamed N50E, the report claims. Apple obviously has competition in this space as other companies, including Meta, which is arguably the most successful player when it comes to smart glasses, and Snap, which plans to release its specs later this year, are working on similar products. Apple's new smart glasses, which will supposedly include a high-resolution camera, may see a public release sooner rather than later, with Bloomberg reporting that the company is targeting the start of production as early as December, ahead of a public release in 2027. Additionally, Bloomberg reports that Apple is working on AirPods with new AI capabilities. All of these items will be designed to connect to the iPhone and will include Siri, the company's virtual assistant, as a critical component of the user experience, the outlet notes. The glasses are being described as more upscale and feature-rich than the AirPods and the AI pendant, however. TechCrunch reached out to Apple for more information. That's it from TechCrunch. For more stories like these, go to TechCrunch.com.